Step out of the car. Now. The voice sliced through the quiet morning like a blade. Harsh. Commanding. Unmistakably used to being obeyed. Marcus blinked behind his sunglasses. The car still smelled like it had just left the showroom. Italian leather. Polished walnut. The faintest trace of engine heat. His wrist, resting on the steering wheel, bore a timepiece worth more than most houses. His posture? Calm, precise. Like a man who had nothing to prove. But the officer didn't care. "You really expect me to believe you own this?" The cop snarled. One hand already on the holster, the other pointing at the jet-black sports car. A crowd had started to form. Phones went up, faces turned. Marcus sighed, slow and deliberate, before reaching for the glove compartment carefully, deliberately, because he'd lived through this before. "Don't move," barked the officer, now red in the face. "Hands where I can see them." The tension was electric. One wrong twitch, and everything could spiral. Again, somewhere in the back, someone muttered. Of course he got stopped. "Look at the car." And that's when it hit Marcus. It wasn't about the car. It never was. He slowly opened the door, stood tall in full view, letting the light catch the crest embroidered on his custom-tailored jacket. "I'd like to see your supervisor," he said, voice low but firm. The officer snorted. "You are in no position to request anything, sir." Marcus didn't flinch. He knew something the officer didn't, something the entire street didn't know yet, but they were about to. Very soon. Marcus Elijah Cole was never the loudest man in the room. He didn't need to be. That morning, he wore dark jeans, a simple gray polo, and loafers polished to a quiet shine. No logos, no designer flash, but his walk measured, balanced hinted at something unspoken. He had grown up on the south side of Chicago, in a neighborhood where sirens were louder than lullabies, and broken streetlights outnumbered working ones. His mother raised him alone, juggling night shifts and bills with worn-out hope. There was no inheritance, no silver spoon, just grit, and one rule: never let them tell you who you are. As a teenager, Marcus sold candy outside bus stations. Not for fun, for survival. At 17, he was offered a job at a garage. He swept floors, wiped grease, and watched how the owners talked, how the wealthy clients behaved, how power moved in silence. By 24, he'd launched his own mobile car detailing service from the back of a borrowed van. Now, that name, Cole Automotive Holdings, sat on the deeds of over 112 luxury dealerships across America. But this morning, he wasn't Marcus the CEO. To the officer, to the crowd, to the man clutching his holster like it was a shield against dignity, was just a black man in a nice car. And that was enough. Enough to make someone doubt him, enough to put him in danger, enough to forget that sometimes the quietest man in the room owns the building. He hadn't planned to prove anything today, but some days the world insists. And when it does, it forgets. Marcus doesn't raise his voice. He moves mountains in silence. And right now, the weight was shifting. That morning, everything had felt clean, the kind of clean that only existed in spaces built for the rich, flawless tiles, mirrored walls, and air that smelled more like imported eucalyptus than oxygen. Marcus had walked into the Aston Drive showroom like any customer, but from the moment he stepped through the glass doors, something shifted. It wasn't loud. It was in the way the receptionist's smile tightened when she looked up. It was in how the security guard leaned forward, like he needed to monitor something. It was in the glance of the white couple near the cappuccino machine, the quick look, the whisper, the shuffle to the side. Marcus knew that look. He'd seen it on private jets, in five-star hotel lobbies, at board meetings, where no one expected him to sit at the head of the table. It always said the same thing: "Are you lost?" He ignored it. Instead, he walked toward the midnight black coupe that glinted under the spotlights. V8 engine, custom trim, stitching that cost more than most rent. It wasn't just a car. It was a message. The manager approached, slick hair, Italian suit, clipboard clutched like a trophy. "Looking for something pre-owned?" he asked. Voice clipped. "No," Marcus replied. Eyes still on the coupe. "I am here to pick this one up. It's under my name." A beat of silence. Then came the performance. The faux smile. The long pause at the keyboard. The eyebrow lift when Marcus handed over his ID. "Oh," the manager said, like swallowing something sharp. "My apologies. You are Mr. Cole. Another pause. Another look. Another silent question. How? Marcus didn't answer it. He didn't need to. Paperwork signed. Keys handed over. No congratulations. No photos. No enjoy your new ride, like the other customers got. Just a handoff. And silence. As he walked to the car, keys in hand, he passed a woman holding a clipboard. She didn't look at him, but her jaw clenched as he unlocked the car with a soft beep. The seats hugged him, like memory foam. The engine purred like it recognized him, and for one moment, Marcus let himself breathe. He didn't need validation. He didn't need approval. He just wanted to drive. But that morning the world had other plans. Because barely 5 minutes later, as he turned onto the main road, the red and blue lights appeared behind him, and the voice he'd heard too many times before came through the window. Step out of the vehicle. Now, step out of the vehicle. Now. The words weren't a question. They were a command, sharp and cold, like steel against glass. Marcus put the car in park and rolled down the window slowly. A white officer, mid-40s, mirrored sunglasses, chest puffed out, leaned toward the window. His hand rested casually but not really on the holstered weapon at his waist. "You in a hurry, sir?" he asked. Voice edged with something Marcus had heard before. Authority soaked in suspicion. "No," Marcus replied calmly. "Just picking up my new car." The officer's lip curled. "This car?" He tilted his head. "You are saying this is yours?" "Yes." "You got proof of that?" Marcus reached slowly into his glove box and pulled out the dealership paperwork. Still crisp. Still warm from the printer. The officer snatched it before he could even finish the motion. He looked it over. Frowned. Then looked again. Marcus E. Cole. He read aloud, like the name itself was foreign. The crowd was gathering now. People slowed their walk, pulling out phones. Some started filming. Some whispered, "He probably stole it. Looks expensive. Maybe it's a rental." The officer didn't hand the papers back. Instead, he stepped back, waved over a second patrol car, and then, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This individual is suspected of vehicle theft. Back up en route." Marcus blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said," the officer barked, voice rising. "You are a suspect in a potential grand theft auto." People gasped. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" Marcus stepped out of the car slowly, hands visible. Another officer arrived, younger, hesitated when he saw Marcus, then looked at the first cop and fell in line. They started patting Marcus down right there, in front of everyone. His blazer lifted, his belt undone, the suit worth $6,000 crumpled under rough hands. "Sir, you need to calm down," the first officer said, as Marcus stiffened. "I am calm," Marcus replied, jaw tight. "Then stop resisting." He wasn't, but resistance had never been about movement. It was about being confident, being calm, being black. Phones were everywhere now. One woman asked, "Why are they doing this?" Another man said. He showed papers. I saw. No one intervened. But no one looked away. Because what they saw was a man being stripped of dignity for the crime of owning something he earned. And then came the sentence that cracked the last nerve in Marcus's spine. From the officer's lips, half smirked. "You don't look like someone who drives one of these," he said it loud, for the crowd, for the cameras, and maybe for the power. Marcus's breath caught. His fists curled, and for a moment, he considered walking away. But this time he didn't. This time he stayed. Because enough was enough. And if the officer thought this was just another takedown, he had no idea what was coming. The cuffs clicked around his wrists like punctuation marks. Sharp. Final. Undeniable. Marcus stood still as the officer pulled his arms behind his back. His tailored blazer twisted awkwardly. His shoulders ached. His breath stayed shallow. Phones were everywhere now. One livestream had over 1,000 viewers within minutes. Comments rolled in. "Bro looks rich. What'd he do? Why are they arresting him? He literally showed proof. This is why we don't trust cops." A little girl across the street started crying. Her mother pulled her close, whispering something as they watched. Marcus kept his eyes straight ahead. "Don't flinch. Don't shake. Don't give them anything." The officer turned him around for the crowd. "Not gently." Someone in the background muttered, "This is disgusting." Another added, "If he were white, they'd be offering him coffee. A third let him go. That's Marcus Cole. That caught a few eyes. Wait, Marcus Cole. The name buzzed through the onlookers like static before a storm, but the officer either didn't hear or didn't care. He leaned in and whispered near Marcus's ear. Just loud enough to carry. You people love playing rich. But this time you got caught pretending. Marcus closed his eyes. It wasn't the first time he'd heard that phrase, but something about hearing it here in front of this many people. With his wrists bound and suit wrinkled and dignity bleeding out onto the pavement cut deeper than usual. He remembered his mother once telling him humiliation is when they strip away everything but your name. And still, they try to take that too. He inhaled and exhaled, slow. He could end this right now. One phone call, one reveal, one business card, but something inside him whispered, not yet. Let them keep talking. Let them dig deeper. Because the higher they climbed, the harder they'd fall. And just as the second officer prepared to open the backseat door, a new voice sliced through the noise. Wait. Stop right there. Wait. Stop right there. The voice was young, clear. It cut through the chaos like a bell ringing in a storm. Everyone turned. A woman in her early 20s stepped forward from the crowd. Brown curls pulled into a messy ponytail. Red name tag swinging on her chest. She worked at the dealership. Officer, she said, trying to sound firm, though her voice trembled. That man didn't steal the car. The first officer's eyebrows arched. Excuse me, he's a registered customer. I was the one who prepped the paperwork. The car's under his name. You can call the manager if you don't believe me. Marcus tilted his head slightly. Surprised. He didn't know her, but she knew him. She stood her ground as both officers stared at her. Miss, we're handling a potential theft, the younger cop began. No, you are not. She cut in. You are harassing a man who owns one of our highest-end models. He showed ID. I verified it myself. You are making a mistake. A murmur swept through the crowd. Someone whispered. She works there. Another? They messed up big. Phones kept recording. One man began live streaming commentary. A staff member just confirmed the CEO owns the car. This is about to get ugly for the cops. The older officer's jaw tightened. He looked at Marcus, then at the woman, then at the bystanders with their cameras. Something had shifted. Marcus felt it. It was small, barely a ripple, but it was there. The weight of proof was moving. The power dynamic was tilting. And then the manager, the one who had hesitated earlier, rushed out of the building. His face pale, sweat glinting at his hairline. What's going on here? He asked, out of breath. The young woman pointed. They were arresting Mr. Cole. The manager's eyes went wide. Mr. Cole? He echoed, like he'd just realized who he'd sold a car to. Then he turned to the cops, flustered. Here has been a misunderstanding. He's a VIP client. He owns I know what I own. Marcus interrupted quietly. The crowd gasped. Even the officer took a step back. Marcus looked around. The girl, the bystanders, the manager. His voice stayed low, but his gaze was fire. I am tired of being a misunderstanding. The officer hesitated. Sir, we're just following protocol. Marcus cut in. Another camera zoomed in. And right then, a headline was born. Somewhere. A journalist was already typing. The young woman took a step closer. You don't have to stay silent, she said. Soft enough, only he could hear. Not today. Marcus gave her a small nod. Not of thanks, but of recognition. Because in every war, here is always someone, just one who throws down their fear and says enough. But the officer wasn't done. Not yet. Because power, when challenged, doesn't shrink, it strikes. The moment someone in the crowd shouted, "That's Marcus Cole," the officer's face twisted. He didn't like losing control. He didn't like the crowd turning. He sure as hell didn't like being corrected, especially not by a girl half his age with a name tag. Without warning, he turned back to Marcus, grabbed the dealership folder from the roof of the car, and flung it across the pavement. Papers scattered like leaves. The title form. The registration. The proof, gone in the wind. You think throwing names around changes the law? He snapped. Marcus didn't move. The crowd gasped again. What the hell was that for? Dude, he just threw the man's papers. Someone shouted. You are gonna lose your job. Bro. The officer's eyes darted first to the cameras, then to Marcus. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped forward. Kicked the car door seat forward, with one aggressive motion. I said, he hissed. This vehicle is still under investigation. I don't care who you claim to be. Marcus stared at him, still didn't move, but something had shifted in his eyes. Not rage, not fear, just clarity. You are going to regret that, Marcus said softly. The officer scoffed. I am not scared of corporate threats, Mr. Fancy Suit. I've seen your type before. Clearly, Marcus replied. Voice calm. But have you really seen me? The manager looked horrified now. The female staffer covered her mouth. Phone zoomed in. The wind picked up, rustling the crumpled pages on the pavement. And then the officer made his final mistake. He leaned over the car, slapped the roof twice, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hope you kept the receipt, because this baby's getting impounded." The insult landed hard. The car Marcus had designed personally with the manufacturer. The car his company funded for production. The car he now watched this man desecrate like a toy. Marcus inhaled deeply. The bridge of restraint in his mind cracked. Still no yelling, no violence, but his hand reached slowly into his inside jacket pocket. The crowd hushed. Even the officer stepped back slightly. Uncertain. Marcus pulled out a black leather card case. Sleek, minimal. He opened it, pulled out a single embossed card, and placed it gently on the car's hood. The officer blinked. He looked down, then frowned. What the hell is this? Marcus looked him in the eye. And finally he smiled, just a little. You'll want to read it, because in 5 seconds, the world would flip. The card glinted under the sun, like it knew what was coming. Thick stock, matte black, gold lettering pressed deep into the surface. Marcus Elijah Cole, Chairman, CEO, Cole Automotive Holdings Private Line for executive use. Only the officer picked it up like it might explode. His eyes scanned it once, twice, then he looked up. And his mouth opened, but no words came out. The crowd moved closer. Hungry. What does it say? Did he just say CEO? Wait, Cole Automotive? As in Cole Motors? Someone near the back gasped. Oh my God, he owns the dealership. Marcus straightened his sleeves. He didn't need to explain, but he did. Calm, cold, precise. I designed the car you are trying to impound, he said. My company funded the drivetrain. My engineers built the prototype. He paused, then pointed at the license plate still temporary, still printed with showroom tags. That vehicle's VIN is registered directly to our executive fleet. It hasn't even hit public release yet. He took a step closer. And you? You just slammed the door on a one-of-a-kind 410,000 model that won't exist in mass production for another 8 months. Silence. Not even a phone beeped. The officer's mouth twitched. That card could be fake. Marcus arched an eyebrow. Would you like to call the dealership? He asked. Or better yet, your captain. A voice from the back yelled. I already Googled him. He's real. Forbes 30. Under 30. Black Enterprise cover last year. Now even the younger officer looked rattled. I think here has been a misunderstanding. Marcus looked him straight in the eye. Number there hasn't. You understood exactly what you saw. A black man in a car that felt too expensive. And that was enough. He turned to the first officer. You judged, you assumed. And now you answer. The crowd erupted. Applause. Cheers. Phone still rolling. The female employee who had spoken earlier stood taller, a smile spreading across her face. The manager looked like he might faint. And the officer? He tried to speak, but Marcus raised a hand. No more words. He pulled out his phone, dialed. Detective Simmons. He said. Yes, it's Marcus. I need you to send someone to the Aston Drive dealership. Now. He looked at the officer. Here is going to be an internal review. The officer finally found his voice. You don't have that kind of pull. Marcus held his gaze. I own the cars, the showroom, the fleet, the branding. A pause. And part of the city budget. That landed like a grenade. The color drained from the officer's face. And somewhere quietly his hands began to tremble. But Marcus wasn't done. He turned back to the crowd. Record everything, he said. Make sure no angle gets missed. And then softly, this isn't just about me anymore. By the time the unmarked black SUV pulled up, the energy on the street had shifted completely. What started as an arrest was now a press conference. News vans screeched to a halt. Reporters spilled out like caffeine-fueled hounds. Cameras locked onto Marcus. Microphones hovered, but he didn't flinch. He stood in the same place, same calm, same suit, no wrinkled, but powerful. The SUV door opened, and out stepped Detective Simmons, late 40s, sharp suit. Eyes already apologizing. "Mr. Cole," he said. Voice low. "I came as fast as I could." Marcus nodded once. Simmons turned to the officers. "What the hell happened here?" No one answered. The younger cop looked at his feet. The older one stared at the horizon. Like maybe this wasn't real. Marcus didn't wait. He reached into his phone, pulled up an email, and tapped the screen. "This is the direct vehicle approval form," he said. "Signed by our internal board. That car belongs to our test fleet, specifically authorized for executive transport." Simmons scanned it, nodded. "And here," Marcus continued, "is the city contract." He flipped to another document. "Cole Automotive Holdings is currently the second largest vendor in the city's electric police cruiser initiative. We provide over 38 of your current patrol vehicles." A few officers nearby blinked, and this, Marcus added, switching screens again, "is the donation slip to the youth justice grant your department uses for community outreach." He looked up. "I funded that personally, last year." Quietly, Simmons let out a slow breath. And the crowd? Dead silent. No one had expected this level of reach. Marcus looked at the officer still holding his card. "I don't need to flex credentials," he said. "But when dignity is dragged through dirt, facts speak louder than silence." The officer opened his mouth, closed it again. The younger one finally stammered. We didn't know." Marcus cut him off gently. "You didn't ask." He turned to the camera. "This isn't new. This isn't rare. This is every day for people who look like me. The difference," he paused, "most of them don't own half the block." A low chuckle rolled through the crowd. Not mockery, relief, pride. Like watching someone win for all of them. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Cole, will you press charges? Is this going viral? What would you say to the officer now?" Marcus raised a hand. "One thing at a time." He walked toward the officer. Face-to face. "No shouting. No rage. Just certainty. You judge the surface," he said. "But power, real power, doesn't have to announce itself." He turned away, looked at Simmons. "I want a full review, not just this officer. The entire division. Every recorded stop in the last 6 months." Simmons nodded. "And I want community reps present," Marcus added. "This doesn't end with me walking away. It ends when it stops happening." The crowd erupted again. People clapped. Some cried. The energy wasn't just justice. It was momentum. And the officer? He took a step back. Then another. But the camera didn't follow him. It stayed on Marcus. Because now the story had a name, and it had just begun to echo. The officer tried. He really did. "I was just following protocol," he muttered, not looking anyone in the eye. "You fit the profile of a reported vehicle theft." It was a coincidence. The excuse fell like wet paper. The crowd wasn't buying it. Someone shouted. "Then, why'd you throw his documents?" Another added. "And kick the damn door?" Phones pointed again. This time, not out of curiosity but judgment. He glanced toward his partner for help. None came. The younger cop had already stepped back. Face pale, arms folded like he wanted to disappear. The manager tried too, clearing his throat. "Here has been confusion. Tensions are high." "And no," the woman from earlier cut in. She looked furious now. "Tension didn't make you ignore his ID, or throw his papers, or humiliate him in front of hundreds." The manager blinked, flustered. Marcus hadn't said a word yet. He just stood there, arms crossed, gaze level, letting the silence do its work. Because sometimes, silence speaks louder than outrage. The officer finally looked at Marcus. "I didn't know who you were." Marcus tilted his head. "And if I were no one?" he asked quietly. The crowd murmured again. Because that was it. That was the line that split everything wide open. What if he had been someone else? Someone without connections, without power, without a business card that stopped bullets. The officer opened his mouth, but nothing came, and in that moment, the crowd turned fully. Not just on the officer, but on the system behind him. They didn't boo. They didn't shout. They just walked, phones down, eyes away, like someone stepping over garbage. And the officer, left standing, alone. Marcus finally turned to Simmons. "Get me the precinct head." Simmons nodded, already dialing. Because this wasn't about proving a point anymore. This was about setting one. And Marcus wasn't done writing it. The precinct head arrived 15 minutes later. Sirens off. Tie askew, sweat beating at his temple. He knew. Everyone knew. Marcus stood with his arms behind his back. Calm, controlled like a man in a boardroom, not a sidewalk. The chief tried a smile. It didn't land. "Mr. Cole," he began, voice overly polite. "I'd like to sincerely apologize on behalf of." Marcus raised a hand. "No need. I am not here for apologies." The words cut the air. "I am here for accountability." The chief blinked. "Of course. We're reviewing body cam footage." There were no body cams turned on. Silence. Marcus continued. "I've reviewed your division's public data. Your traffic stop ratio is 6 to 1 black drivers to white in this district. Your complaints doubled in the last fiscal year. And last month, one of your officers tackled a black teen outside a mall because he looked suspicious. No charges, no reprimand." He paused, then looked around at the crowd. "I didn't need to dig far. It's all public." The chief shifted uncomfortably. "And what would you like us to do?" he asked. Marcus pulled out his phone again. "I want Officer Dunley." He nodded toward the older cop placed on immediate administrative leave, pending full investigation. The officer's head jerked. "And I want a third-party audit of every traffic stop conducted by this precinct in the last 12 months. The chief's mouth opened, then closed. "And," Marcus added, "effective immediately. Cole Automotive is freezing all vehicle donations, discounts, and service contracts with your department until this review is complete." Gasps, actual gasps, because that would cost them millions. "And," he finished, voice still calm, "we'll be reallocating those funds to an independent legal defense fund for victims of racial profiling. Starting today." Cheers broke out. Real ones. People clapped. Someone shouted, "That's how you do it." The chief's face collapsed inward. This will go public," he murmured. Marcus didn't smile. He simply said, "It should." He stepped back toward his car papers retrieved. Door now respectfully opened by Simmons himself. As he slid into the seat, Marcus looked up one last time. "This wasn't revenge," he said. "This was a reminder." And with that, he closed the door, softly. But the impact echoed across the city. A week later, Marcus stood on a small stage in a local high school gymnasium. No suits, no cameras, just rows of young faces, some curious, some cautious, all watching. He didn't talk about horsepower, or stock options, or city contracts. He talked about walking into rooms where people already made decisions about you. He talked about restraint, about knowing when silence was strength and when it was surrender. Then he paused, looked at a boy in the front row, slouched hoodie, quiet eyes. "You," Marcus said gently. "If someone looks at you and sees less, don't waste time trying to change them. Spend that energy becoming so undeniable they can't look away." The boy straightened. Someone clapped in the back. Marcus smiled. "Your worth isn't proven when you win a fight," he added. "It's proven when you don't have to raise your voice to own the room." He stepped off the stage to a rising wave of applause, not thunderous, but solid, real. Later, as he walked to the parking lot, a young girl ran up to him, phone in hand. "Is it true?" she asked. "You really own all those dealerships?" He looked at her. "Some," he said. "But what I really own," he paused, looked at the sky, "is the right to never be underestimated again." And then, with a wink, "Want a ride in a prototype no one else has ever seen?" Her eyes lit up. He opened the door. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is not to destroy, but to inspire.